Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? It's real fun. Just like Mookie, I will sign. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get together.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Til Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter like we are each and every single week, coming to you Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time or thereabouts. Today, a little different. Mets are playing a split doubleheader. They are right in the middle of it, and we are coming to you live from right in the middle of that doubleheader. And something tells me that today is going to be one of those episodes. But before we get into it, John Saponaro coming to you from North Hollywood, California. And that means that my co-host, Matt Ibanez, holding things down back in New Jersey. Ibby, for a different reason than the last couple times we've talked, but I know this is a loaded question this week because how you feeling, man?
It's been
Finally, Mets out of it. You know what?
Well, I mean, in general, yeah.
Other than that,
well, life is always, throwing curveballs at you. So I'm dealing with some stuff on my end regardless. So, the Mets don't make things any better, but in general, I'm doing okay, best I can. But this team doesn't make things any better, but always red lights on. We're going to do our best on this Wednesday, a little past 5:30 to break things down as they've been going over these last handful of games. And I'm pretty sure everyone needed that reprieve of that rain out, as well as that off day, because I don't know about you, John, I don't know about you, chat, but I have needed a break. I feel bad because I was invited onto Talking Mets with Rob. I was invited onto the show for yesterday or it was Monday. I can't remember what day it was, but I was invited on, and I said to him straight up, I was like, Rob, I love you. I know I've been trying to get on, but I need a break, man. I need a break from this team. I need to just get away for a little bit because I got to save some energy for Wednesday. And, I work in the summer job out in the sun all day. Like I just needed a little bit of a day off. And I was just like, there's nothing. I mean, we're going to talk about plenty today, but there's so much frustration and pent up, and I'm sure I'll let a good amount of it out today. But in general, I'm doing okay. I wish this team was playing better. It's lifeless baseball, as I've been tweeting about the last couple of hours. But like I said, red lights on. Let's talk some baseball. Let's try our best, as I always say, on a Wednesday to have some fun, get those feelings out, get those emotions out. This is your vent session. This is your therapy. Let's do it.
Yeah, just a bit of a life update from me. If you follow me on Instagram, you know this is the case. But in case you don't, I am not wearing a cast anymore. The cast is off. My hand is not 100% healed. It's about 85% healed. I do have a brace that I can remove and kind of actually use my hand so that the atrophy doesn't get too bad. Feels pretty good. It's a little swollen. It's a little sore, but my hand is well on the road to recovery, and hopefully I can start playing baseball and softball again by the end of the month. So
there you go.
Yeah, it'll give me an excuse to go out and do something that is unrelated to the Mets if the Mets continue to be awful, which I hope does not last another month. Okay, before we get into the conversation, shout out to the chat. We have Odd Villain. We've got Game for War, Armand D, Pantrice, Mess for Let's, Andre. We have Paulie S. Who else is here? A lot of people. Clink, Brad. We have Douglas Barnes is back in the live chat. Seems like that's it as far as live commenters go to this point. But again, that number will continue to grow. A lot of familiar faces. Hebrew Hammer.
Hebrew Hammer, Joe Prano. Joe Prano. What up, Joe? What up, Joe?
Joe Prano, now that you've got two good hands, can you tie me a noose? I feel like that is the comment of the day in the sense that
Joe, as long as we got that Miller on ice, we should be okay, brother. As long as we got the Miller on ice, we should be okay.
Yeah, I should be, but we'll see.
Should be.
Lot of comments that I think can kind of set this show off. And again, with a game in the rearview mirror and a game to look forward to, we try to not be reactionary, right? That's not our bag for this show. We do it once a week, but how can you not be? So with that being said, we've got this comment from Armand, which also sets us off the way Joe's did. Welcome to Til Mets Therapy, Do Us Part, because that is very, very accurate. Douglas Barnes saying, surely the Mets can win game 2, right? I mean, it is very difficult to sweep double headers, but right now it doesn't look like the Mets can beat anybody. And it'd be with the starting pitcher that they are lined up to face and the pitching that they are about to run out there themselves. I would say winning game 2 is going to be harder than winning game 1. And that's after they fell down 5 runs.
I mean, facing a pitcher the ilk of Jacob Mizorowski, I know he's a rookie, but the stuff in general, like I don't have high hopes for game 2, and I hope I eat crow. I really do. I hope this lineup somehow wakes up. But knowing that he's on the bump and what he has, he's gonna be throwing 100 miles an hour past, the 5 through 9 within our lineup with ease. That's what I'm just picturing, and I'm picturing a quick game. I really am, and I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong, but it's kind of hard to have high hopes for a game based off of what we've been watching, especially offensively over the last week.
There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, including the Mets making some lineup changes, which again, we don't normally get into the lineup stuff, but when nothing is working, and we talked about it last week, we assigned blame to each portion of this team, lineup, starting rotation, bullpen, front office, coaching, all that stuff. Nothing is working, and you're going to make a kind of sweeping changes that the Mets have made, and I would consider this one to be a sweeping change. But Ibby, let's put the lineup stuff off to the side for just a moment. We'll tease it by just saying Lindor is DHing, but batting second. I think the batting second is the important part. I think DHing is just, he's still dealing with the broken toe. Get him off his feet. Don't make him play 2 games in one day. You do have a backup shortstop in Ronnie Mauricio who didn't play the first game. So the DH part feels like a no-brainer. We'll talk about the hitting second and what they've done with the lineup coming up in a little bit. Ibby, I want to talk about something that a lot of people have talked about on Twitter since the moment that it happened. And I mean, everyone from Jake Brown, who's been on the show, Ryan Finkelstein, who's been on the show, all the content creators across the Mets space have brought this up. I saw Carson. I saw Keith from Shea & Sons. So many people brought up the Clay Holmes coming out of the game with only 90 pitches and a runner on, going to Reed Garrett, an 8th inning guy in the 6th inning, going to Reed Garrett, who's got an ERA over 7 in the month of June. And of course, he blows up the game. Now, there is the school of thought that says, listen, other guys have to do their job. And to that point in the game, Clay Holmes did his job. I don't disagree. But I tweeted out something and I stand by it. I'll just say it and then I'll throw it your way. I understand that Clay Holmes is in his first year as a starting pitcher. I understand that he's hit a wall over the last couple of starts where he's been walking more guys. He hasn't been able to throw as many pitches. They're not having him go as long. They're not pushing him because at some point he is going to hit an innings limit as a first-year starter, and they're probably going to have to shorten up Clay Holmes, and he's going to finish the year, especially if the Mets are playing meaningful games like we hope they are, he's probably going to finish the year in the bullpen. That's just a symptom of being a guy who is in his first year as a starting pitcher. I understand, and I acknowledge all of that. He battled. He got into the 5th inning. I know he was at 90 pitches, which is close to his threshold anyway. But my counter to that is the Mets have 4 starting pitchers on the IL. Canning is out for the year. Senga's still not on the way back. Manaya's close. He's not on the way back. And I don't know what's going on with Tyler McGill. That's 4 guys. The rest of their starting pitching has been woefully ineffective. They're playing a doubleheader today, and they already know that because of that, they're going to need a starting pitcher probably Sunday, maybe Friday, whatever the case is, sometime in the series against the Yankees. So if you were ever going to see if Clay Holmes can get you out of an inning, today was the day, was the day, was the day. I'm sorry. And you know, I've been both supportive and a little critical of Carlos Mendoza. In this case, I think it's a guy that did not have the feel for the bigger picture scenario. Again, acknowledging everything that I just said, and it is a fair counter argument. But when you're up against it, and you could even dismiss half of it with the starters on the IL, just look at the fact that they're playing 2 games today, and they need a starter. And by the way, I mean, I don't even know who they're going to get as a starter because they seem completely unwilling to call up Nolan McLean, which we could talk about later. So right now, you kind of need Clay Holmes to see if he can get you through that inning. Now, sure, Reed Garrett could have started the next inning, and then maybe he blows up the game there anyway because he's been bad, and you need other guys to make pitches. Fine. They maybe lose that game anyway because maybe Brendan Waddell gives it up. Whatever. But I just mean that one singular decision in a vacuum just seems as though it didn't make any sense when you look at playing 2 games in one day and needing a starter and not really having one at the end of the week.
It was now, mind you, I want to preface this by saying I didn't get a chance to watch the game today because I was working, but just filling myself in with highlights and watching and reading everything that went on, I feel as though I would have been in the same exact camp because when I see this comment from Carlos Mendoza, and I'm going to read it verbatim from the SNY Mets account, when he was asked the question if he had a desire to push Clay Holmes today to finish that inning, he said, no, not once. When you got a guy that's at 90 pitches in 5 1/3, you're asking for what? 10 more pitches. That wasn't going to be the case. We got some other guys that can cover 18 innings. And I was just joking with John before we went on air. And I said, do you have other guys that can get those outs and pitch those innings? Because I don't know if you do. And it was questionable to say the least. And I understand. I know. I think it was Douglas Barnes in the chat saying that you got to look towards Garrett because others have to be able to get outs. He pitched like crap, and I agree with that. I'm not dismissing that at all. But to John's point before, it's a doubleheader. We know that we're weak as it is when it comes to arms or fresh arms, and how we're very burnt out and fried and all across starters and the pen. This was a time where you could have pushed it a little bit, and I understand, and I've backed it before. When it comes to Stearns and Mendoza, and I'm not even so sure it's just a Mendoza thing where it's losing a feel like John was mentioning before, unless this is just a continuation of front office and manager having to be on the same page when it comes to we're always big picture. We're always long scope. We're not focused on this individual spot. We want to make sure that we're focusing on everything. And that's the view that the Mets have had with David Stearns up until this point. And I understand it. I do. But there are times, and I feel like today was one of those days. There are times where you could say, you know what? It's not going to hurt to push an extra 10, 15 pitches. I don't think it would have. I think it would have been better. I think it would have been easier for Reed to start an inning as opposed to coming in. And in general, I think you needed, I don't like calling games must win, but I think you needed to win that game. I think coming into it, based off of how you've been playing, you were embarrassed in Pittsburgh. And I was going to lead with this as well. When you're facing a red hot Brewers team with good pitching, and you're going to face Mizorowski later in the night. Okay. And then you got the Yankees for a 3-game set after. It's not as though you're ending that June swoon as awful as you did. It's not like you're ending that and entering July with like some cupcake schedule. You're not. You got a week worth of baseball against 2 good teams. Now, look, we could talk about the Yankees being up and down. That's whatever. And the pitching matchups that aren't going to be the greatest, where you got Montas and you got Stroman, you got all the. I don't care about that. Okay. Because this team's not hitting. So it doesn't matter who you put out there. I can't trust them to do anything. But in general, I feel as though this was the right time to try to push just a little bit. I'm not asking you to tell them to go out there and throw 150 pitches. Okay. I would have tried to get out of that. I would have. And I don't agree with the pulling there. And I understand that Garrett has to be better. I understand that the pen has to be better. But at this point, we as fans, we all know already that this pen, no matter what we do to this point, is burnt out. And again, I said it last week and I'll reiterate it right now. It sucks that they are burnt out and it's only the start of July. And like I said, it seems like a cyclical thing when it comes to the Mets. It's always happening every year. But this comes back to the offense. The offense has to score runs in order to support, and they're not doing that. They had what? 2 hits? How many hits did they have today? 2?
I think 2. Yeah.
2 hits. 2 hits, John. Like, this isn't how you win ball games. The pitching blew up. Garrett blew up. I'm not defending him because he's been bad. And the stats say he has a near 11. I think he has an 11+ ERA and a near 2 WHIP over the last handful of outings. It's bad. But this team is also not scoring. You can't put these guys in spots where they're constantly having to be perfect. It can't happen.
That's the problem. And that's what last week you and I both agreed that of all of the facets of the game, the lineup is still the biggest culprit for this.
Hands
swoon.
Down.
And the reason is, and you guys can go back and watch last week in terms of what we're talking about right now. It's evergreen in a sense. So I don't want to spend this show just making the same points as last week. But this was billed as a lineup that could carry a team. This was billed as a lineup that was going to be among the best in the National League, if not among the best in baseball, and it isn't. There has not been one stretch. Hell, there's barely been a game where this lineup has carried a team. There's probably a game here or there, Ibby, where yes, the lineup has scored a lot of runs, and then the pitching does have room for error, and then you error, and then you bring in, the last guy in the bullpen. The last guy in the bullpen, pitches 4 innings, gives up 4 runs, but it still doesn't matter because the offense has gotten off to, that kind of a start for that game. But those have been few and far between. And look, you're not going to blow people out every night. This is Major League Baseball. This is not MLB The Show. This is not Beer League Softball. But the fact of the matter is they have not held up their end of the bargain. And I know Freddie Peralta is a good pitcher. And I know Freddie Peralta has been very, 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 very good against the Mets over the course of his career. But 2 hits when you've got him at 40 pitches in the second inning or damn near 40 pitches, score some runs. Because if the Mets put up 5 runs, then guess what? You can leave Clay Holmes in for 2 more outs, or 10 more pitches, or 15 more pitches. Pick your thing. Every single game the Mets are playing, it's no room for error. Let's go to our bullpen because our starter is beleaguered, because our starter has to be perfect, because our offense can't score any runs. Now our bullpen comes in, and again, the bullpen has been bad, and the starters have been bad over this 20-game stretch. I'm not apologizing for them. But they also have no room for error. Reed Garrett comes in a quote-unquote soft spot. This is not the 8th inning. It's the 6th inning. There's a man on first. And he can't get the job done. But he has to be perfect. And Clay Holmes, had he stayed in the game, he would have had to be perfect. And these guys are not going to be perfect. So by the lineup not doing what they're supposed to, by the offense not doing what they're supposed to, you make the starting pitcher's job that much harder. Then you make the bullpen's job that much harder. And when these guys aren't executing, which again, I'm not apologizing for them. I just said it before. Reed Garrett had an over 7 ERA in the month of June. So he has not been good. But you need him to be perfect. Also, who else is Carlos Mendoza going to go to? Right? Keith Hernandez always calls Reed Garrett like the fireman because he comes in and puts out fires. That's what he's been for the Mets when he's been good. So going to him in the 6th inning, instead of saving him for an 8th inning you may not get to, actually does show some forethought from the manager. It actually does show some being proactive rather than being reactive. But it doesn't mean that pulling Holmes in that spot was the right move, given everything else that we're talking about. And again, it comes back to the lineup. They are not good enough, period. That's it. You're muted.
I mean, now that I think about maybe me being muted is probably better because I have no words truly when it comes to this team. Because I mean, the frustrating part, especially when it comes to the offense, is it's lifeless. Like there's no, I feel as though that there is no fight. And we could talk about, and like I said before, like this show is going to be kind of in a bunch of different places, but that team meeting and what happened in Pittsburgh and the fact that they got outscored 30-4 against one of the worst teams in baseball. And then you have a meeting that becomes the talk of everything. And everyone's like, oh, they're having another meeting. It's just going to be the turnaround. And then after that meeting, they lose 12-1. And I believe they've been outscored 19-3 ever since said meeting. And it's
Shout out to Danielle Sepulveras, who was a guest on this show, who tweeted out, this meeting could have been an email, and it was the most
that
the
is
most
great.
accurate.
I didn't see that. I love that. That's great. Danielle's awesome. But just like there's no change, and that's a problem to me because I'm not even seeing anything in terms of improvement. And I know this comes back to the players, and this comes back to the kids not performing or showing out the way that Stearns thought that they might when you give these kids run, like we talked about last week. I don't need to reiterate that. I think that covers it for the most part. But this is also why, like, I don't like being an advocate for saying fire someone or saying take away this guy's job or take away this guy's livelihood. Like, I get, and I know that they make a lot of money, what have you, and they make more than I'll ever make in my life. But still, you don't want someone to lose their job. But in this case, it's the nature of the beast. If you don't perform or what you're in charge of is not performing, there needs to be some sort of change. I've said time and time again, I do not know if a change in hitting coach is going to change anything in terms of a team, because again, it comes down to the guy that's standing in the box to go out and do a job. But at the same time, it's like I want it to happen just to eliminate this talking point, just so that it could just solely be, we can't use this as an excuse anymore. This cannot be an outlet. This cannot be a talking point. This could be nothing because we give you the change. It's done. It's over with. We move forward. That's the main reason why I want it to happen. But it also bothers me when I hear, Eric Chavez do the I don't know if you want to call it an exclusive interview, the one he did with Puma, when Puma said, when someone asked him, could somebody please ask these hitting coaches a question about what's going on? And then he does the article. And, when you have Barnes and Chavez saying, oh, we have full support, they tell us, we're doing a great job, we're working through it, working hard, this and that. It's like, usually when we're working hard, there are some glimpses of something. Even if you can't notice it at first, there's still something there. I'm sorry. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, John, if I'm missing something, but I'm not seeing glimpses, and I haven't seen glimpses for this offense all season. I said from the jump, even when they were winning ball games, I said, we still have not seen the best of this team. Far from, because it was the pitching that was carrying. And this is only getting worse because the pitching is now tumbling altogether. They're all regressing back to the mean for who they are. And it's not their fault. They pitch their asses off. They're the reason why that this slide, while it's bad, it's not as bad as it might be because they were able to win as much as they did in the beginning. But the fact that this team is 14-16 over the last 30 and they're trending down, it doesn't help anybody. So they're in a bad spot, and the offense has not shown me anything outside of Juan Soto to this point that's going to say, okay, we're going to pick this up. We're going to make this work. Shout out to Pete for getting the RBI today to give him the lead and what have you. Like, I know it's hard to pick on the top four. Lindor's been slumping, and we know that this team does not win when Lindor slumps. But overall, the offense is unwatchable. It's, again, it's got to the point where I said in the beginning of the year, I'm not watching the offense. I'm watching the pitching. And now it's to the point where it's like, I can't watch any of this because there's no offense, and the pitching is just downright awful. There's nothing good, and I love my team, and we always say we speak candidly on here. We tell the truth. We tell it like how we see it. We'll gladly admit when we're wrong when it happens. But all in all, guys, bad baseball, 1000%.
Yeah, let's jump back into the comments. By the way, you're watching Til Mets Do Us Part live on YouTube, live on Twitter. If you like what you're watching, go ahead and hit a thumbs up, a like on the video. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, it is the best way to become a full-fledged participant in the show because you cannot join the live chat unless you are a subscriber to the channel. And if you're going to do that, you might as well turn notifications on so that you never, ever, ever miss an opportunity to know when we are going live. If you miss any of the show, though, it will be available as soon as we're done here. It lives forever on our YouTube page, which is also called Til Mets Do Us Part. You can also find us as an audio show on Apple and Spotify and all those good places within a couple of hours once we're done with the live stream. Back into the comments, Ibby, I want to put a wrap on this, Clay Holmes, Mendoza decision, just with two comments here. Chris Scopo, another great Mets fan, another great former guest of the show. Shout out to all the former guests that jump in here in the comments. Appreciate you guys. We got to have Chris back on too. Mets don't have an ace pitcher that stops the losses. Today, Holmes pitching well. He needed to finish that inning. I agree with that. Douglas Barnes going one step further, saying Holmes being taken out was the least of the problems in today's loss. I'm just going to respectfully disagree in that it's all a problem. Holmes not being able to finish that inning is as big of a problem as, 5 through 9 not hitting, is as big of a problem as Lindor slumping, is as big of a problem as Mendoza not letting him finish, is as big of a problem as Reed Garrett not getting it done, is as big of a problem as the next guy not getting. It's all terrible. They're so bad right now. You cannot give anybody a pass. And that's why I mentioned Ibby in the same breath, Lindor not hitting, because look, we know Lindor at the end of the day is not the problem. Lindor, Alonso, Soto, Nimmo, they're never going to be the problem. They're too good. The rest of this team, as currently constructed, doesn't have enough talent to even come close to any one of the four of those guys, with Nimmo being, a distant kind of player compared to the first three, especially. But right now, Lindor needs to hit. Right now, you said good on Pete. Yeah, he needed that. He had 20 RBIs in the first 10 days of June and then had 2 for the last 20. Do something. They're all to blame. Every single person.
Yeah, just pulling this up from Daniel Capp saying how, fellas, do y'all think that the Mets need to put Lindor on the IL to get fully healthy? He's not hitting 200 since he got hurt. Look, I said something in one of my chats before that, when it initially happened, my first thought was, take 2 weeks because of where the schedule was. I thought it was a soft spot in the schedule. I said, take 2 weeks, rest up, and then come back. But when he was back, whatever it was, a day or two or a game or two later, and we kind of just got rolling with it, I was like, all right, I guess everything's okay. But now, again, there's only so much you can do when you're trying to fight through pain and things like that. And is it affecting him? I'm sure it is. It's not easy. It's part of your balance or whatever it may be, whatever it feels like on the follow through, whatever it feels like being on your feet for 7, 8, 9 innings a game if he doesn't get pulled, which oftentimes he fights to always stay in the game. And we can always respect Lindor because he always wants to post up, and I get it. But when it initially happened, I said, take the 2 weeks. I think we can handle this for that span. And ever since that, it's gone downhill. And obviously we can also equate it to, when Senga went down, that things really went downhill post that. But still, it's one thing to look back on. Yes, one say it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it, but I said it at the time, and I felt like it made a lot of sense, but they went a different direction, and we are where we are. So that's really it.
Yeah, look, at this point, if it was 2 weeks ago, I would probably argue against it, and I'd say, if you can tolerate the pain, you can play baseball with a broken baby toe, right? Like, even at the highest level. And Lindor knows his body, and this team has, every baseball team, they have the best doctors and they've got everything going for them, and they're trying to protect their players. And I don't like to use this phrase because players are people, but protect their investment of their players, right? And things like that. So if they're going to make that call, I would be hard pressed to argue against it, because this is not 1970s baseball where guys just played through everything. Guys are more apt to sit down and go on the IL and take a day and take the extra time because we just know more about health and medicine and caring for these people than we did, or we care more. If we don't know more, we care more now about it. So I would have argued against it. But Ibby, to your point, it's impossible to argue against it when you know the results, which is he's hitting 200. He's got, I think, 2 hits. They both happen to be home runs over that stretch, but like he's not doing a lot. Fortunately, it hasn't really hurt him defensively. But he's simply not hitting, and maybe it's a factor. I would think if you had a broken foot and you're playing shortstop, a broken toe, and you're playing shortstop in the major leagues, it would affect you more defensively than offensively. Especially, again, this is not a huge part of his balance. It's not his drive. It's baby toe. So you would think that he'd be able to hit better than maybe he'd be able to field. But you've seen him steal some bases as soon as he came back. But something's amiss. And if he had to sit down, there was a time to sit. In your point, I think now it's kind of moot because bones start to heal, trust me, pretty quickly. And at this point, as long as he hasn't re-injured it and there wasn't a risk of re-injuring it, he's probably well on the road to recovery. It's probably 40, 50% healed at this point. So now there's no reason to sit him. Yeah, you could have sat him when you were playing terrible teams, but they didn't do that. They didn't go in that direction. So
odds of it happening now, Daniel, is probably nil. I don't think he's going anywhere at this point. But if it was supposed to happen, or if it would have happened, it would have happened a handful of weeks ago when it initially broke. But for now, don't think it's going to happen.
Let's talk really quickly because I don't want to spend too much time on this part of the conversation. It'd be the lineup change that we teased earlier. Lindor DHing, again, I think just to get him off of his feet for everything we've been talking about. He is playing with a broken toe, doubleheader, true backup shortstop on the roster who didn't play in the first game in Ronnie Mauricio. There's no excuse to not have Lindor just DH to get him off of his feet a little bit. I don't think the DH is the important part. Hitting second is the one that I find interesting. The way they're going here, Ibby, is Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, Alonso. After that, it doesn't matter. It's like the Mets only have 4 players on the team. I actually wish only those 4 could bat. We might actually score some runs if you gave all those 4 guys just all of the at-bats in the game. This is something that Ryan Finkelstein threw out there on Locked On Mets a couple days ago. Shout out to him. Where if he was going to make a change to the lineup, what he would do is put Nimmo in the leadoff spot because he's had so much success there. Move Lindor down to the 2 spot because he gets the protection of having a hitter in front of him who's hitting very well in Nimmo, having a great hitter behind him in Soto, and it may allow him to take a little bit of the pressure off of himself. And then he finished the point by something that I completely agree with, which is if you could wipe your mind of 2024 and the season that Lindor had in the leadoff spot, and you were just constructing a lineup for the Mets in 2025 based on skill set and where guys, quote unquote, should hit, the lineup should probably be Nimmo, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. And so I don't have a problem with that. I will just answer this question before I kick it over to you from Armand, which says, outside the box thinking, why not try Ronnie Mauricio in the leadoff spot instead of Nimmo? You just can't put anybody other than these 4 guys. I know it's a broken record. It's something that we've said since the beginning of the season. Somebody else has to step up to justify hitting ahead of them. It didn't matter, but I was sick to my stomach watching Starling Marte get more at bats than Brandon Nimmo. It's a joke. It's a joke. And I know he's not been terrible, but no.
I can't do the Marte in the 2 spot anymore. I can't. I understand why they do it sometimes probably from an analytical perspective or the pitcher or a lefty or whatever. It's like I can't do it. Like there's 4 guys that should be getting the most at bats, and we've said their names multiple times. It's Lindor, it's Alonso, it's Soto, and it's Nimmo. Like there's no one else. And I know we often get like comments after if I talk about Jeff McNeil in better spots because of his overall numbers. You want to talk about McNeil 5, like whatever at this point. But like I said before, I don't care where McNeil bats 5, 6. It doesn't matter because overall the back end of the lineup's not doing anything. So, and the reason why I wouldn't put Ronnie in a leadoff spot is because I as much as it's fun to watch him hit tanks when someone's dumb enough to give him a fastball, I don't think he's going to be, thriving in that spot until he proves that he can actually be patient and hit a breaking ball. Otherwise, he's just going to get a healthy diet of that. And the last thing you want is to, have your leadoff guy just be an automatic out. And for a majority of his stay to this point, it's been that. So I can't get behind that idea, especially with where this team is right now. I think you have to just stick with what works, or you hope can work, I should say, in those 4 players, because outside of that, I don't trust anybody.
I completely agree. There's just nothing else that you can add to that. Those 4 guys, and again, Lindor is the best overall. I said this last week. Lindor is the best overall player on the team. Soto is the unquestioned best hitter on the team. He's one of the best 3 hitters in the sport. Pete is the best power hitter on the team. He's one of the best, 5, 8, no worse than 10 power hitters in the sport. Nimmo is not the player that any of those 3 guys are, but he's a notch below that. He's a great overall all-around player. Fine. No one else on this team has shown anything to show you that they deserve to get more at-bats than those 4 guys. Full stop. That's it. There's just nothing else you can say. I said it earlier in the season, even Ibby, about Nimmo when he was so bad, and people were like, why don't we put him in the 2? Why don't we move Soto down? And it's like, well, why would you? He's not hitting. There's no justification that you can make to force a guy who's not hitting to hit in between guys who are hitting to start the season. Now that he's rebounded and he's been the Brandon Nimmo of old, now he can enter the conversation. I'm willing to have this conversation if Vientos was hitting like Vientos last year. If Mauricio was in the midst of a breakout season. If Brett Beatty wasn't just doing it for 2 weeks at a time. If Jeff McNeil was Jeff McNeil hitting, 330, then yeah, we could put him in the 2-hole and go with like the Paul LaDuca kind of 2-hole effect of getting a guy, behind your leadoff hitter that can do a lot of things and hits for a high average. But none of that is happening. So you simply cannot do it. Which brings me to my next point, which Klink is bringing up from Twitter that I said earlier. It says, John, I loved your tweet about the young guys, get away from Chavez and Barnes and always mash. I ask myself the same question you asked in the tweet all the time. So I took Joe DeMayo's tweet, shout out to Joe DeMayo, and where he had the video of Francisco Alvarez hitting a home run today in AAA, 3rd home run in 3 days. And I just said something to the effect of, at what point, Ibby, do we ask ourselves, are all 4 of these guys just quad A players? That's Alvarez, Mauricio, Beatty, and Vientos. Or is it something wrong with the philosophical approach to hitting at the Mets major league level that has hindered, hampered, or hurt their development in some way? Now, I could be wrong on this. They could all just very well be 4A players. But the odds of them all being 4A players, I also acknowledge that it's a lot easier to hit in AAA than it is to hit at the major leagues.
Big
Pitching
difference,
is not as good. And the biggest leap in the minors, everybody will tell you, is single A to double A, because AAA has a lot of guys on rehab, has a lot of guys on retread deals, a lot of guys who are trying to make it, a lot of guys coming back from surgery. And so it's not the level of, in terms of jump of progression. I acknowledge all of that. But Ibby, I do think it's at least worth having the conversation of, is there something to this? And to what you said before, I just think sometimes changes need to be made for change's sake. And Chavez and Barnes, to a slightly lesser extent, have presided over some pretty piss-poor offenses. I'm not sure there's a single player, young player, who's got consistently better. As a matter of fact, they've all gotten worse, right? Brett Beatty went from, top prospect, 1st-round pick to barely a major leaguer. Vientos had a huge year last year and has regressed horribly. Alvarez had a huge year. His rookie year has regressed horribly. Mauricio has not been in the major leagues enough really to get a true sampling of what he can do at the major league level. That's mostly due to injury. But I don't know, man. I just look at it where sometimes you need to make a change. And the fact that Chavez has survived and Barnes, again, hasn't been here quite as long, but these guys have survived is weird to me. It's at least worth the conversation. Are these guys the prospects that we thought they were? Are they quad A players? Are they somewhere in between? But I don't know if they're this bad either. I don't know.
I guess the one thing I could bring up when it comes to the prospect pedigree is one thing when it comes to where the Mets system was versus where it's trending towards now. One could say that when you bring in new players or you draft new players and you notice where certain higher end guys were prior to that influx of talent coming in, you notice how quickly those top end players drop. They go from 2 to 7, 5 to 12, 10 to 20. So it makes you say, well, were these guys really top flight prospects, or were they just a product of a bad system? So you can say that this is the number one prospect, but sometimes that doesn't mean anything. But in Alvarez's case, he was the number one prospect in baseball at one point. So that does carry a little bit more weight. But yeah, in general, like you have to answer, you have to ask the question, because it is very telling how they go down, they dominate, they come back, and it's just like they're lost again. Now, is it something that is being taught? Is someone in their ear saying, you're doing this, but you should be focusing on this instead? Don't pull the ball, do this instead. Yeah, but I was doing this here. Don't matter. That's AAA. This is the bigs. You should be doing this. Like, I don't know how these conversations go. I don't. I mean, again, I always have said that a hitting coach is there to aid again, these while they're still kids, they're still grown men. They're men to the point where this is your job. You go out there, you get paid X amount of money to go and do something. I still wonder if it's, to a point where Eric Chavez or Jeremy Barnes is saying to these guys, like, hey, do this. And if you don't, like, you're not going to play. Like, I don't think it's like that. I really don't. Like, you still got to go out there. You still got to perform. But I do wonder if something or like a hint is being like, hey, you're doing this. Like, the one quote that always sticks out to me with Chavez is the one where it's like, yeah, you hit all these home runs, but don't you think you could be a better overall hitter? It's like, no, man.
No,
like I
some
want him
people
to be
can't.
a 25. I want him to be a 25 homer bat at a position that it's a luxury to get 25 homers out of the catcher position. I don't want him batting 280 and giving me 12 homers. No, then he's just a guy. I don't care about that.
Correct.
An average run-of-the-mill catcher. I don't want that.
And that's the thing that people don't realize. I'll use the Ronnie Mauricio example because I brought this up a lot over the past week. And I don't remember if I said this on the show last week or not, so I apologize for repeating myself. Like, Ronnie Mauricio is a guy who will probably, if he sticks at the major leagues, strike out 150 times a year. But he's got so much power that in that he might hit 210, hit 25 home runs, steal 25 bases, and play an above average third base. That's plenty. That's fine. He doesn't need to hit 280. He can hit 210. He could strike out 150 times. It's going to be frustrating at times, but the 25 home runs, maybe more, who knows, the 25 home runs and the 25 steals and the above average defense, that all plays. That guy can hit 7th on any team in the major leagues. And you could throw parades. They already have Soto. They already have Lindor. They already have Nimmo. They have guys with high on base, with low chase rates, with higher batting averages. They don't all need to be the same. And you can extend that to Francisco Alvarez. You're right. I don't care if he hits 280 with 12 home runs. Terrific. What is this, 1968? Who cares? I want him to hit 30 home runs. And if he hits 230, that's better. It's insane. It's insane. You can't fundamentally change every guy. Yes, more complete hitters are better before the old school fans jump down our throats.
Of course.
More complete hitters are better. But not everybody is meant to be a more complete hitter.
Not
And
everyone's
just
Juan
because,
Soto.
yes, in fact, most people aren't. So it's crazy to me that these, like, what are you trying to unlock in these guys? Because again, I used to say this all the time about Pete Alonso when people complain, oh, Alonso should be hitting 280. Alonso should be hitting 290. I was like, do you realize if Alonso's hitting anywhere that sniffs 300 and is still hitting 40 home runs, he would be one of the best pure players in the sport. He's not. He can hit for power with almost anyone. But no one's going to confuse Pete Alonso with Aaron Judge. No one's going to confuse Pete Alonso with Shohei Ohtani. No one's going to confuse Pete Alonso with Juan Soto. He's a different kind of hitter. Also, by the way, if he hits more singles to raise his batting average, he's
more double
going
plays.
to hit. Yeah, he's also going to hit less home runs.
Yeah, which means less runs, which helps nobody.
Right. And if he didn't, he'd hit 70 fucking home runs. If he hit 300 with the power he has, he'd be hitting 70 home runs. But he's not that kind of player because he's not Judge and he's not Shohei and he's not Barry Bonds, steroids or not, or whatever, because that's the echelon that would put him in. And he's not. And that's okay. And some of these guys can just be lesser ball players. It's fine.
Exactly. I was just going to say, I think it's to the point where and I said last week, I think David Stearns is probably seeing this as well, where he's like, I gave it the shot and it's not working, but I'm still a ways away from being able to get something because no one's selling yet. But I think he realizes that the players I have that I gave this opportunity to are not it. And I have to do something to spark the back end of my lineup, because what I have here is not helping me now, and odds are it's not going to help me in the future. Odds are he'll look at it and he'll say, maybe I have something with Mauricio, maybe I have something with Vientos, maybe like whoever he chooses or whatever he thinks, but based off of who he brings in and how it can play off of their skill set versus the ones that are here, what works in that sense. But I do think it's clear as day that the players that were given an opportunity are not it. And I have no problem admitting that. I have no problem saying that out loud because it needs to be said. Because like I said, even though 1 through 4 outside of Soto is a pain to watch at the moment, 5 through 9 is unbearable. I can't do it. I walk away from the TV. It's just background noise because I can't watch it. They're not professional at bats. I can't do it, which tells me these players are not pro ball players. That's it.
Yeah, I just want to bring up a couple of comments really quick just to clarify. Ken Thal saying 250 average for a Met is an aberration. And Goomba 999 saying we got 6 guys under 200, at 200 or under, and 6 pitchers over a 7 ERA the last 3 weeks. We do. And none of that is good.
That's A ball. That's garbage.
My point is, when we're talking about guys hitting for low averages, when Ibby and I are bringing that up, we don't mean over stretches, right? Like obviously hitting 7 guys in the lineup under 200 for 3 weeks. That's not good. We're talking about guys leaning into their skill sets. The Mets aren't the Mets aren't scoring runs, not because they don't have guys who hit for high enough averages. That's part of it, but that's not the answer. They're bad at situational hitting. The Mets don't hit a lot of sac flies. The Mets don't hit a lot of, the bases are loaded and, whatever. Like instead of hitting into a double play, it's a weaker ground ball where at least a run scores and you only get 1 out. Like they don't do the things enough that you need to do. Part of that is they don't have guys who hit for a high enough average, but that is not talking about the guys who are not leaning into their skill set. Again, when you take a guy like Alvarez, he's a better hitter, hitting probably 230 with 25 to 30 something home runs. You would not be complaining about his batting average. You're complaining about his batting average because he's turned into a let's hit singles to right field hitter. And if he's going to do that, he needs to hit 280. You're right. It's about the skill set. It's about what you're trying to accomplish as a team. The other part of it is, and what we've been saying the whole time, after the first 4 guys in the lineup, and I'll include Jeff McNeil just because he's been good enough, but these guys, by and large, are not doing their part. So when you look at the non-superstar guys, right, and the non-superstar potential guys, then you could start to complain about their batting average or their situational hitting. Again, like you take a guy like Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor does a lot of good things well. He's got to contribute more because he's never going to hit you 30 home runs.
Right.
So it's not about home runs versus batting average, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's just about guys doing what they are good at and being allowed to be that. And philosophically, I think that's where Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes hold them back.
And that's where I would say on the back end of this lineup, there are no roles. Even though baseball has changed over the years, there are no roles established for players. We know what the likes of Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, and Soto provide. We know who they are. Everyone has their ideas of what Jeff McNeil is, even though we differ in some spots. That's fine. Professional hitter, puts the ball in play, slaps around, whatever. Outside of that, nobody else has a role. Nobody knows what they are. Nobody can do anything. And that's a problem because, again, I brought this up for Mr. Nobody, and it is so true because the lack of sac flies have killed him for years. I've been saying the same thing for the longest time that I've been a Mets fan, that this team never hits a fly ball when they need it the most. Never get the sac fly, never move the guy over. I've been saying that, I feel like, for 20 years now. I've been saying that. But it's a problem. And it's just overall, it's ugly baseball. It's not good. And, I just... It is beyond frustrating to watch, and I'm running out of things to say, but I don't know how this team wakes up. I don't know what they're going to do, but in general, I do think changes need to happen. And whoever said it in the chat, I think it might have been, maybe it was either Hebrew or a Game for War mentioning, if I'm wrong on that, I apologize, but saying how in the article for Chavez, saying how he doesn't want to do anything drastic. And meanwhile, you have to do something drastic based off of the numbers that were just rattled off what we're watching over the last month almost. It's like, what, you don't want to do anything drastic? Like, I understand wanting to go through a process, but when you go through a process and you keep on banging your head against the wall over and over and over again, I'm pretty sure that's the definition of insanity, and it's not working. So what are we doing here? You have to change something.
I was going to save this for after the break, which I wanted to head into, but it makes more sense to just say it now. We'll go into the break afterward. I said this to you before we went live. I am tired of the rhetoric. It's like, we can't do anything. Now, there are some people in the comments, like, Ken Thal said earlier that this is on Cohen because he doesn't have the balls to hold people accountable. I disagree. I don't think you get to the success level that Cohen has had in his other ventures without having the balls to hold people accountable.
Well,
Andre
also,
said this.
Just to cut it real quick, it's more so Steve Cohen is doing what he said he would do, which is what we've all as fans have wanted. Be the money, be the backer, but also hire baseball people to make baseball decisions. He's not cutting in and saying, do what I say. He hires people that he knows are baseball people to make baseball decisions.
I don't want him to be Jerry Jones.
I don't want a meddler.
He knows.
That's the worst
I
thing
don't want
you
him
could do.
to be that idiot that owns the Knicks and the Rangers. Like, you don't know the sport. Let the people who know run the sport. And that brings me to this point. Andre said before, this is all on Stearns. His grandmaster plan on taking non-quality pitchers and pulling Houdini acts is blown up spectacularly on his face. Should be on the hot seat for this garbage. I've got a couple problems.
Yeah.
And I will say,
Last week, you and I also both agreed the front office, the second biggest culprit to the lineup, mostly because they have not done enough to replace the depth that they've lost. They've not done enough to truly build out. I thought this team was one hitter short when the season started. And so I do have legitimate critiques of Stearns. However, this is not all on Stearns. He did inherit a terribly bloated team with a terribly bloated payroll. Could you imagine the hitter that the Mets would be able to add to this team if they weren't currently paying $35 million for Jeff McNeil and Starling Marte? They could have got Devers.
Ibby, that's Kyle Tucker in the offseason. $35 million for two guys who have not been horrible, but that's a starting everyday superstar. And if you don't want to go that route, that's 2 to 3 useful everyday players.
That's
not
the back
a
of your
guy,
lineup right there.
Yeah, not a guy that you're like,
lineup.
wow, I really hope 83-year-old Starling Marte can give us a spark in the 2-hole. Man, I really hope Jeff McNeil can recapture some of what he did 5 years ago and hit 5th in a lineup that's trying to make the World Series. No, that's insane. So that's my first issue. Second issue is, what pitchers were you giving the money to? Corbin Burns? How'd that work out? So far, Max Fried has been great, but 8 years? Giving Max Fried 8 years? I didn't want to do that. I think the philosophical belief in not paying starting pitchers in their 30s to big year deals is one that Stearns is right about, and I think he will be right about. I think other teams, Ibby, are going to start to follow that to the letter.
The sad part is that people don't want to hear, because I say this often. The process that Stearns is going through is one that a team that, when you inherit something like you did, when you don't have pitching and you're trying to build up the youth, the way you win is by developing your arms. And unfortunately, that takes time. And he wasn't going to spend the $200 million plus to get a Corbin Burns. And we see how already the Diamondbacks are dealing with that, because he's out already asked Tommy John. He gave him 10 starts. He's already getting Tommy John. Who else? What other arms are people screaming about that you wanted? You wanted to bring back Severino that badly? Maybe you want to talk about that one. You want to talk about, Jose Quintana pitching well for the Brewers.
That's the one I'll give you is, if you were going to spend the money anyway, it's one more year. You could have given a little bit more money to Severino instead of Montas.
Or if the rumor was true about the 2 years that Severino said he was willing to take, as opposed to taking the 3 years from Oakland, which are the Athletics, who are now apparently, according to Clappish, trying to move him because he keeps on being outwardly spoken about how terrible it is to play in Sacramento. So take that as you will.
Yeah, and look, that's the one that I can give you. But Odd Villain says it.
Another one here.
Oh,
sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off. But yeah, people talk about Walker Buehler. He's been terrible for Boston. He looks shot.
Yeah. And this one from Odd Villain, Senga got hurt. Canning got hurt. That's not on Stearns.
No,
also,
it's not.
Minaya got hurt, and everybody wanted Minaya back. Despite the fact that on this show, you and I were both like, yeah, it'd be good to have Minaya back, but he's not a sure thing. That's the most innings he's ever pitched in his life.
And the most innings he's pitched
in 5 years. Most innings ever, and the most innings in 5 years. And he changed his delivery, to match somebody who's always hurt.
Yeah. Always
but everybody wanted him back, and they brought him back. And I think ultimately they should have, but there was a cautionary tale, as there always is. They went out and they brought back Minaya. They were hoping for a bounce back from Senga, which until he got hurt, he was giving you.
He was given.
They got the single best bargain in Major League Baseball, not only this year, as far as I can remember, in Griffin Canning. He's getting paid $4.25 million. If he pitches healthy the whole season, and he even pitches to a 4 ERA, he's going to make $17 million next year. They got him for less than 5. So I don't want to hear that this doesn't work. It works. It's better. But if guys get hurt and depth is tested, and then you're not willing to do some of the other stuff, and this is where the criticism, Ibby, this is where I could say the criticism is fair, because they're very quick to jettison guys who are horrible. Stearns is great at, let's bring a guy in. He's a middle reliever. He's 28 years old. He's good for 2 appearances. He's bad for 2. We cut him. Let's bring a guy in. He's terrible. We get rid of him. They're really good at that. They're really quick on that end. What I would like to see them do is be a little bit more aggressive on the other side, where you have a guy like Nolan McLean who is lighting it up in AAA. He's not 19 years old. We don't have to pretend like he's a child. We don't have to pretend like he couldn't possibly be ready. Like it's the furthest thing from the truth that he could be ready. Maybe he's not. But is he going to be any worse than Paul Blackburn? Probably not. Is he going to be
Right.
any worse than Blade Tidwell, who's clearly not ready? Probably not. Is he going to be any worse than Brandon Sproat, who they went and took a flyer on and he wasn't quite ready? Probably not. So that's where I would say the criticism lies, is that some of these guys, when everything is crumbling around you and you've lost the depth because Senga, Manaea, Canning, and Tyler McGill are all on the IL, and now you're like, well, we hope Paul Blackburn can be okay, and we hope Frankie Montas is ready, despite the fact that he looked terrible in his rehab. One good start, one bad start since he's been back. Well, go get Nolan McLean. Let him pitch. You need a starter this week? Let's see him. And if he's bad, we'll all shut up. Just like fire Chavez. And you know what? If the offense doesn't turn around, we'll all shut up. But do something of consequence. That's where I get frustrated. And it's not enough for me to say Stearns is on the hot seat or Stearns doesn't know what he's doing. Stearns has forgotten more baseball than me, you, everybody in the chat, everybody who listens, everybody who watches respectfully will ever know. He is very good at this.
I did laugh. I did laugh when someone said, someone on Twitter said, like, David Stearns acts like he's the smartest guy in the room. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure he went to Harvard, so odds are he probably is the smartest guy in the room when you think about it. I did laugh.
Yeah. So I don't mean to get on this soapbox and just like preach about it, but there are things you can be critical while also understanding the bigger picture.
Yes, of course.
I'm critical of Mendoza. I don't want Mendoza fired. I think Mendoza has been a better manager than he's been more of a good manager than he has been a bad manager. He's got a winning record. He took a team that was dead in the water last year, got them to rally, got them motivated, got them to an NLCS that nobody ever thought they had any business being in. To me, that counts for something. David Stearns might be the smartest person in the room. If he's not the best young executive in the sport, he's no worse than number 2 or 3. Who would you rather have than him? Andrew Friedman, maybe, is the one guy that you would definitively say?
Who are just, I would agree with that. Yes, 100%. And just bring it back to what we were just talking about. Who are the pitchers that were signed this past offseason that have actually provided the best numbers? That's something that I either I can look into, I know Armand can look into. Who were the guys that were signed that were obviously potentials for this team that are dominating in what they're doing? The only one that one could bring up is probably Garrett Crochet. But like I said, I still don't think you had the horses to give the White Sox what they truly wanted. I don't. They got Kyle Teal. They got Braden Montgomery. Like, you didn't have players that match that because they're better than the Mets farm system. So again, I don't think you can use Crochet there. Who else was there that you were going to get that's doing so well that was going to change the tenor of what this team is doing? I want to know who it was.
People are going to disingenuously say Jose Quintana, despite the fact that half Met fans, including us, wanted him off the team this time last year. Jose Quintana was a prime candidate for, thank you very much for the way you rebounded. We really appreciate it. We need to go get somebody with better stuff. 100%.
Yes.
And by the way, I said it then. I said it when they signed him. I've said it 3 times since, and I will say it despite the fact that he got bombed the other day. Frankie Montas has better stuff than Jose Quintana. Does that make him a better pitcher? Not necessarily, but he does have better stuff. And I would say he has the same upside. Don't be fooled by the numbers that Jose Quintana is giving right now for Milwaukee. They're good. They're very good. Would I rather have that? Of course I'd rather have that. But you can't let that be like, oh my God, look what we let go. He was inches away from being cut last year. Inches. So, I don't, then there's like Kenthal saying Dave Dombrowski is somebody that you would mention. I don't think Dave Dombrowski is better than David Stearns.
Not for today's baseball. I don't think so. I think moving forward, I would much rather have a Stearns. I know Dombrowski has always been someone that is an all or nothing type. Like, I'm going to try and win. Like, I'm sure the Phils will be overly aggressive this trade deadline because they need to get some guys for the pen. And I'm sure they'll get them. And odds are they might end up giving up some top flight prospects to get said players. And is it going to help them win it all? Maybe. Do I think it is? I don't. But again, I understand why people like Dombrowski because he's always this gunslinger in a sense where he's like, I don't care about anything. I'm going to try to win. And yeah, he has a title to his resume for that. But a lot of times, like, that ends up burning out, and then he leaves places in ruin until he finds his new job or his next job, I should say.
That's what he does. He basically does what the Dodgers have done since the Ohtani signing, which is like, we're throwing caution to the wind for the next decade. And then, like, the Dodgers out here, it's going to be barren. Now, they might win, who knows? They might win 10 World Series. Probably not.
It won't, maybe it won't matter, but yeah.
It won't matter because they're going to win 5 World Series in 10 years, and they're not going to care that they're terrible for 10 years, and neither will the fan base because they're going to have trophies and statues and all kinds of shit. But at least when you do that as an organization, you're making an organizational decision. That's the ownership, that's Friedman, that's everybody through the entire organization. Dombrowski is brought in, he does a thing, he scorches the earth, he leaves. I don't think that's better.
People talking about Quintana right now. The main reason why you did not want Quintana back was that Dodger game. When you have a pitcher like Quintana, who we're talking about a team that's trying to build and trying to get guys that can help them as they try to move towards October and have guys that can succeed there. And to John's point, talking about someone like Montas, you got to have guys that can strike people out. You have to, and especially guys that can strike someone out within the zone. I know Montas was tipping pitches. I know he's had a rough go last start as opposed to his first start. But when you have someone like Quintana who lives on the edges and you're thinking about competing with a team like the Dodgers do not fish. They do not go out of the zone. And you saw that when he faced them. So how could you, like, you're hanging on every pitch in hopes that the Dodgers, the big bad Dodgers, are going to go out there and wave at pitches as he lives on the edges to give people a chance. It wasn't going to happen. I know he's pitching well for the Brewers right now. I get it. But at the same time, that's not someone that I wanted to be watching in October try to get outs against bigger, badder offenses. I don't think it was a recipe for success. I don't. And I stand by that.
Ibby, would you rather have brought back Jose Quintana or signed Frankie Montas?
I would have. I stick with. I didn't have an issue with Montas when it happened. I know a lot of people freaked out when it happened. I understood why it happened. It's the strikeout potential. It's the fact that the money that was being paid to him is standard in terms of when you don't develop your own pitching. We talked about this ad nauseum during the offseason. I didn't have an issue with it. I understood. It's ugly now because of how things are going. It wasn't supposed to be like, he was supposed to just be an innings eater type. But when stuff like this happens and you're like, oh my God, the top of rotation's Frankie Montas, that wasn't what it was supposed to be. But things happen. Right. It's supposed to be a depth arm, supposed to be a guy that gives you innings. Okay. The injury happens. Okay. Comes back. Is he a little bit out of shape? One could question that. Tipping pitches doesn't help. But still, stuff-wise, I'd rather have Montas. Throws harder, better strikeout potential, could actually stay within the zone and get people, as opposed to Quintana. People are making it seem like Quintana was this all-world beater. A lot of you wanted him, got what John said, and you're making it seem as though he was going to save you. That's not what was going to happen.
Armand said when Quintana pitches, you're hoping for swings and misses. I'll rephrase that to you're hoping for chases or bad strike calls by the umpires. Yes, you're hoping for a big strike zone, and you're hoping for chases. And good teams, they're not going to do that. You have a better chance of getting outs with a guy like Frankie Montas. What?
Not in a league of velocity now. Not in a league that's very dependent on velocity.
We could debate the merits of whether or not that's the most important thing, but that's the way the league is built now. That's the way it is. Was baseball better when guys were living on the black and knew how to pitch? Probably. But it's not like that right now. So getting a guy that's like that with not good stuff is so counterintuitive to how the game is played. We've gone way long, Ibby. Let's head into the break, come out of the break, reset the conversation a little bit. We have a lot more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter. We will be right back in about 30 seconds. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week, starting at 5:30 Eastern or thereabouts, taking you through the good, the bad, and the ugly with our New York Mets. And right now, there is a lot of bad and there is a lot of ugly. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez. If you missed any of the show, don't worry. You can go back and watch the entire show. From start to finish. I was going to say the entire show in its entirety, but that was redundant, so I caught myself. The entire show from start to finish on our YouTube channel as soon as we are done with the live broadcast. We're going to try to be out of here in about 20-ish minutes so that we can get out of here before first pitch, the nightcap of the Mets doubleheader against the Milwaukee Brewers. Game 1 did not go their way at all. Game 2 is not shaping up to be so great considering the pitching matchups or lack thereof from a Mets perspective. But Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, let's end with a quick word from our friends over at Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent Safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And I'm not going to bother with a dope of the day. I'm not going to bother in that sense, but I will just put someone in the safe just to put it out there, mainly because I'm not in the mood to laugh at this point because of what we've been watching, because we're laughing on a daily basis as it is watching this team in general. It stays with the offense. It stays with this team in general. It's not pretty. They deserve to be locked up. And I am contemplating this week of actually throwing away the key because it's not good baseball. Things need to change. Something drastic needs to happen to shake this, because if you keep on doing what you're doing, you're going to finally create that space that you don't want, which is the space between yourself and the Phils. And I believe at the moment, what are we? We're 2 out, 2 back.
2 games out.
You keep this up. You went from being 5 up to 2 back. You say thank you for your April and May for being so good and winning the amount that you did. But now you're 2 out and you keep on doing this and saying, oh, we're going to keep drudging along. We're going to keep on doing what we're doing. It's going to turn. It's going to turn. It's going to turn. I said to John before, I go, conversation like that, it's going to turn, it's going to turn, it's going to turn. The last time we said something like that was 23.
Yep.
23 never turned. I don't want to put that on this team, but what I've been watching over the last month, that's the way I feel. It's unwatchable baseball. It's not there. It has to get better. Something needs to change. IndependentSafes.com. Free shipping, $99 and over. Tell them Til Mets sent you. They'll take care of you.
I don't want to, there's a lot of comments about Quintana and Severino and trading for Crochet. And I don't want to re-litigate the past. It's pointless. Because the fact of the matter is the Mets had pitchers on this roster going into the season that were better than certainly Quintana and probably Severino too. Kodai Senga, right? They go out and they bring back Sean Manaea. So now that's 2 players that are better than Quintana. And in the case of Manaea, at least on par with Severino, but no one would argue with the fact that Manaea had a better year than Severino last year.
Yeah.
Yes, the potential for eating innings and quality innings, Hebrew and Kenthal, I see your comments there. You're not wrong. But again, Montas, you're frustrated because Montas has been here for 2 starts. He was hurt. That pisses everybody off because he got hurt to start the season. He had an awful game that's burned in your memory because it just happened. But Frankie Montas did give you 5 quality innings in the first game back. And there were times last year where Quintana was horrible. He was not giving you quality innings either. There was not a sure thing guarantee. So I say all that because this is the depth of the roster. This is the extra pieces. The Mets were getting great performances from their depth, and then Cannon got hurt. They were getting great performances at the top of their rotation, and then Senga got hurt. David Peterson was terrific. He's looked bad 2 starts in a row. Is this the real David Peterson? Probably not. He's probably not as good as the electric performance that we saw for like a full calendar year from middle of last season to 2
Did the complete game? Did the complete game change him?
Probably.
Did the complete game change him? Is he tired?
How many times have we seen guys pitch complete games and then get bombed for 2 starts afterward? No one should pitch complete games anymore. It's stupid. It's guys don't know how to do it. They don't know how to recover. Shouldn't have done it.
They're not shown how to go lengthful starts because they're trained at this point from an early go in the minors to go 4 innings. And then you try to stretch from there. It's like these guys rely on velocity and hitting their spots and going all out for 4 because they know that that's the end point. So when you try to start stretching things, I think that's why these injuries happen. Simple as that. And the Hebrew saying here also, it really doesn't matter if you brought in Cy Young because we can't hit. So again, comes back to the offense.
That's what brings me to this comment from over an hour ago from Mess for Less that I was saving, which I hope Mess is still here, saying so many things wrong at this point. Where do you even start to fix it? If you could only improve one thing, what would it be? Offense, starting pitching, bullpen. I think this is a great thought exercise as we look ahead to some players coming back, as we look ahead to the All-Star break, which will be a much-needed reprieve, and as we look forward to the trade deadline. My gut instinct, despite everything, still goes, if I have to rank them, lineup 1, bullpen 2, starting pitching 3. So if I could only improve one area, it would still be the offense.
I would improve the offense. That's my number 1, but I still sit here and I wonder who that player is and if that player is available just yet. Like we talked about last week, I like Willie Castro. Is Willie Castro a savior? No, he helps the back end of the lineup a little bit, but is he going to be that much of a game changer? I don't think so. But in terms of what I want offense. But the player I want, I don't know if that player is going to be available. That player is Eugenio Suarez. I don't know if the Diamondbacks are actually going to sell. Okay. But what I think is going to happen is different in terms of what I want. I want offense because I want to score runs to help everybody. I think that they are going to attack bullpen and starting pitching. Honestly, I think it makes too much sense because the words that I'm seeing from writers about who is going to be up for the bidding when it comes to the deadline, Merrill Kelly makes way too much sense for this team. Professional pitcher, goes out there, even when he doesn't pitch well, still gives 6 or 7 innings, older arm, going to be a free agent, makes too much sense. October tested, good ERA in October as well. Makes all the sense in the world to be a guy that even though he's not this automatic stopper, he's a guy that can go out there and give you a professional outing and protect your bullpen when he pitches every 5th day. Makes way too much sense. Does he make sense for a lot of teams? Absolutely. Makes sense for the Cubs. Makes sense for the Phils if they wanted to get another arm. Makes sense for anybody that needs something of a push if they want to go for October. But in my opinion, that's the guy that the Mets should try to get, which is why I said before, they should be working towards a 2-player swap and getting Suarez and Kelly from Arizona. But I don't know if they're going to sell that much. That's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But I don't know if it's going to happen. I want offense. I think that the starting pitching / bullpen is what they are actually going to attack as much as they can.
I think that's a mistake.
I do.
I think you're right. I want offense as well. Now, any way that any team tries to improve is not a mistake. Let me clarify that. I think you have Sean Manaea coming back in probably a week. You have Kodai Senga, who's going to throw a bullpen today and then go on rehab. He should not be far off. You will have a starting rotation that then has Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, David Peterson at the top of it to go along with, for a time, Clay Holmes and then Frankie Montas. I think that starting rotation, again, health matters. I understand that. You can't assume everybody will be healthy, but you also can't assume everybody's going to get injured. That starting rotation is good enough at the top. So if you wanted to go and get a guy for the middle of the rotation, I'm all about that. When I look at the bullpen, they have Edwin Diaz. I know a lot of the other guys in the bullpen have been very frustrating to this point, but they also have a returning Brooks Raley, who worked another scoreless inning for Double-A Binghamton. Shout out to Armand for this. 1 inning pitch, no hits, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts, 14 pitches, 10 strikes. All of his rehab outings so far, Ibby, have looked almost identical to that across Single-A and Double-A. He will be back probably by the end of the month, thereabouts. Then you have Clay Holmes, who's an X factor here. And this is why I would look to get a middle of the rotation starter, because I think sometime in August, Clay Holmes is going to get shortened up and he's going to go into your bullpen for the stretch run. So now you're going to have a back end of the rotation, even if you hate Reed Garrett, even if you think Huascar Brazovan and Max Kranick are fool's gold, and even if Daniel Nunez does not bounce back, you have a back end of the bullpen that's Edwin Diaz, Clay Holmes, and Brooks Raley. It's going to be better than a lot of teams can offer. The starting pitching is better than a lot of teams can offer. But then we go back to the lineup. Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, Alonso. That's great.
And that's it.
That's it. Correct.
That's it.
And I know they're bad, but the Braves lineup is better than the Mets lineup. The Dodgers lineup, forget it. So much better. The Phillies lineup, better to this point. There are teams with better. Padres, better. There are teams with deeper lineups. The Mets need, if you look at need, and when I say need, I want them to improve at least one player in each of these areas, and I don't think that's too much to ask. But when you talk about needing an influx of talent, the lineup is the glaring hole. They have 3 people trying to play third base. To this point, none of them have been good enough to do that. They have a second baseman playing center field. He's been admirable. Hat tip to Jeff McNeil. I never thought he could do it at 33 years old or whatever, but he's doing a very admirable job. He should be playing second base more often than not, but he can't because they don't have a real center fielder. They have a 38-year-old going on 83-year-old DH in Starling Marte. Jesse Winker coming back will help that, but he's not going to cure that. So their DH spot is giving them nothing. Their catching is woefully thin, especially however warranted this send down from Alvarez was. They better hope Alvarez continues to hit and comes back soon, because this lineup, like I said last week, is not good enough to carry Luis Torrens and Hayden Sanger as your catching tandem. So everybody who's down on Alvarez, well, you better hope that what Alvarez is doing in AAA is what Alvarez is, because there's nobody else coming. You got Luis Torrens and Whole Foods. That's what you got. That's too many holes, Ibby. Second base, center field, third base, catcher. Those are starting positions in your everyday lineup. I do not want to hear that a guy who pitches once every 5 days or a guy who pitches 2 times or 3 times max in a week are more important than filling one of those gaping holes in the everyday lineup. Not when you have Diaz, not when you have Raley coming back, not when you have Holmes probably going to the bullpen, not when you have Senga, Minaya, Peterson at the top of your rotation. You want to go trade for Luis Severino? Do it. Sure. If that's a middle of the starting, sure, do that. I'm not going to get mad if you go get Merrill Kelly. I think he's better. Sure. Great. But the hole is in the everyday players. Are we watching the same games? Because I just watched the Mets get 2 hit. They need more bats, and they need a big bat. I don't know who it is. They better find out, because they're not going anywhere. If
that's the problem. I don't know if there's going to be that bat. That's the biggest issue. Like the areas where potential big like they're not trading for Josh Naylor. It's a first baseman. Like I don't know. Like I
make him a DH though. You could trade for Josh Naylor and DH him.
It's true, but like I don't know. I don't know if they would go that route. I think that Suarez makes a lot of sense, but I also understand Ryan Finkelstein's point of him saying that, Suarez is a guy that's played in smaller places like smaller media places like Seattle, Cincinnati, and in Arizona. Him coming to New York, he's a guy that tends to slump. If he doesn't come here hitting hot, is he going to be able to get back up? Like, I understand that point wholeheartedly. I do. His profile makes sense to plug at third base, but would it work? I don't know. It's a risk you're willing to take. It is, because I don't like what I've seen from third base. But I question at this point, because we're still a ways away, of what's going to be available and what's going to make sense if that player does come up. I do think that a player like
Oh, you froze.
I do think that a player like Kelly makes sense because the innings he provides gives a little bit of a break on his starts to the bullpen. Because even when this guy goes out there and he blows up and he gives up 4 or 5 runs, and I've seen this in Arizona, he's given up 4 or 5 runs, he still goes out there and finishes strong and saves the pen. It's not as though he gives up 4 or 5 runs and he's out in the second. It's not like that. He's able to go 6 or 7 innings still and work through and give you a chance to do it. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of competition for him, depending on what someone's willing to give up for him. But I think he makes sense. But I agree with you. I want offense. I just don't know who that player is. And I don't think right now we know exactly who it can be, because maybe not, that player might not be put out there just yet because teams are still trying to jockey themselves to be in position to be a playoff team.
Yeah. Look, I know it is harder to find that offensive player, but I think that's the job. I think that's what makes, everybody loves to play armchair GM, including me. I'm doing it right now. But that's where you earn your money. Go find the guy that helps. We all like the names. It doesn't have to be a big name. You can go get, okay, let's liken it to 2015. You could argue, in a way, despite the fact that Cespedes was amazing. I'm not trying to shortchange him. He was terrific for us in 2015. Carried the team on his back. But getting Kelly Johnson and Juan Uribe was almost as important as getting Cespedes.
Much needed depth.
That team needed Cespedes. That team needed to raise the floor and the ceiling of their offense. The Mets don't necessarily need to raise the ceiling. They have Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Juan Soto. So they need Kelly Johnson. They need Juan Uribe. So if you're going to tell me, Ibby, that there's not one guy, like Odd Villain throughout earlier, and I agree, Brian Buxton makes a lot of sense. If you can't go get Buxton, then go get Willie Castro. And then go get somebody else. And then go get a third guy. And then you can start to cover for, man, I wish Vientos would grab this DH job, but he's not. But that's okay, because we still have Jesse Winker and we have, whatever. We can slide this guy over there. We can move some things around because we have the depth to do it. That's how you succeed. I wish Brett Beatty would be your third baseman, but he's not. But now we have this guy and he can play third. That's what they need. Because right now it's Beatty's good. No, Beatty's bad. Put Mauricio there. Mauricio's good. No, Mauricio's bad. Put Vientos there. No, Vientos is bad. Let's go back to Beatty, I guess. What are you going to do? You have no other options. It's insane. Really quick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Armand. Breaking news. Francisco Lindor is the starting shortstop for the NL All-Star team. Just announced. Congratulations to Lindor. I know we don't want to celebrate that stuff right now because it feels secondary to the team struggles, but that is super important. And also Freddie Freeman, not Pete Alonso, is the starting first baseman. But I think Pete will probably still make the team. I think so too. Same thing. I think Soto will make the team as well.
Obviously, shout out to Lindor. And I'm going to just put my, unless you had anything else, I was going to do my finishing point right here, unless you had something.
I do want to bring this up really quickly. I'm sorry. Hebrew Hammer and a couple of other people have been banging the drum. Jet Williams and Drew Gilbert. Call them up. Let's see what they do before we start.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen yet.
It's not going to happen.
It's not. I know people want the sexy name, the sexy prospect names, and you see the lists that come out and how Jet Williams, not Drew Gilbert, but Jet Williams is inside the top 45 for some publications. Some even have
Maybe he's
higher.
playing in Double A.
I get
And
it. I get it.
He missed all of last year, and he's playing in Double A. It's not.
I get
gonna
it.
happen.
It's not going to happen. That's something that you might be able to see him break through in camp next year. I don't think it's going to happen right now. Stranger things have happened, but it's not something that I would bank on based off of what we've seen from this team and this overall leadership group. So I'm not thinking that that's going to be something that happens. I understand wanting to give Gilbert a shot. I get that.
Well,
I think
that's
that
the sidebar. Sorry to interrupt. That's the sidebar that I would hit you with. I think that Gilbert, who's 25, basically, if you want to give him a shot with a black hole in center field, even though he might not really be a center fielder, I'm game for that one, guys. If you want to me, there's an aggressive call up and then there's a foolish call up. And then there's also just a call up that makes too much sense. Right now, Gilbert at 24, 25 years old in AAA, despite the lost season last year, with the hole that they have, I would say that that's a call up they could make, Ibby, and then I would be like, all right, let's see what he's got. Can't hurt, right? Jet Williams to me doesn't make sense because it's too aggressive. He missed all of last year. He's played in Double A all season. He's never really played in AAA. That's a guy you can't call up right now. You just can't. On the flip side, again, Nolan McLean is pitching in AAA and he's pitching well. You want to call him up? Call him up. There's certain guys. I saw one for Ryan Clifford as well. Ryan Clifford's not coming.
No, he's a year,
Ryan Clifford
probably
and
2 years
Jet Williams
away.
are not ready. And I'm all for the aggressive move. I was preaching the aggressive move. You want to tell me Drew Gilbert? I'll give you Drew Gilbert. You want to tell me Nolan McLean? 100% on Nolan McLean. Williams is not ready. Clifford is not ready. It's not going to happen.
There are certain guys, and I think the one that tops the list for me is Nolan McLean, and that's the one that I want to see, and I would love to see it. If it's not going to happen now, hopefully post All-Star break, I would like to see that. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's time to see some of these bullets used in the bigs as opposed to being wasted in AAA. I understand wanting hit mile markers, but at the same time, you have to look at what you have and push some of these guys, and I don't think it's stepping too far out of the overall plan because one would think that Nolan McLean is a part of the plan for the rotation for next year. So there's no harm in seeing what he can provide right now as this team is struggling because you're not getting much out of the likes of the lesser types, whether it's the Waddells or the Austin Warrens or the Paul Blackburn types. So all in all, we have 4 minutes to first pitch. I just wanted to say that it's a trying time, Mets fans. It's not pretty. No one enjoys watching what they're watching. I wish I could have shown more exuberance and excitement for Lindor because he deserves it and he should be the starting shortstop, even though he's going through this terrible funk right now. He finally gets the nod. It's awesome to see. Good for him. I do love it. It's just right now, this team has me feeling a certain way, and it's not good because I like watching good baseball, and this team for a long time has not provided good baseball, and I want things to turn, and I want them to wake up, and I want the offense to start providing. Can that happen tonight? We will find out. It's not going to be an easy task. Jacob Mizorowski is the truth. He's an awesome, incredible arm. So if you've never seen him before, you haven't seen his highlights, get ready because he can bring it. Hopefully the Mets bats, are ready to bring it. Otherwise, it's going to be a quick one tonight, and they're going to get embarrassed. So let's go, Mets. Let's hope that next week I can use a less dramatic thumbnail as opposed to the one that I used this week.
Would be nice.
Would be nice, but shout out to the 180 plus people that joined us, between both games. Again, try your best to not drink too heavily while watching this team tonight. Let's go, Mets, and shout out to the chat and shout out to everyone that's been supporting us for the longest time.
Huascar Brazaban, okay. That's the first batter.
Okay.
All right, okay. It's one out. The top of the first, okay. All right.
We're not going to do play-by-play.
We're not going to do play. That's my favorite thing. Mike Prince says, we're not going to do play-by-play. Does play-by-play. That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing that you could do. Really quickly, I just want to echo some of Ibby's sentiment. Congratulations to Lindor. Well overdue. I wish that we could have spent more time talking about that and that we could be more excited for him because he does deserve it. He is a great player. He's a great leader. He's been a great Met. He's the de facto captain of this team. He's a great ambassador for the Mets. He's a great family man. Like he just deserves the honor. It's a travesty that this is the first time it's happened for him in a Mets uniform. It's long overdue. So congratulations. I wish it was coming at a better time so that all we could do is wax poetic. Honestly, either for him or for the team, but the team hit the skids and he hit the skids all at the same time. And that's a bit of a bummer. But do want to let you guys know next week we will have a guest. We'll have a guest for the first time in a while. We're going to have Tony Metro, Tony Metro MLB. He's on TikTok. He's on Twitter, all that stuff. Big time Mets fan. Been talking to him about collaborating for a bit. He's going to be on with us next week. Then a couple weeks after that, we will have another guest from the Mets TikTok world. We'll save the reveal on who that's going to be coming up. And then from 2 weeks from now, during the All-Star break, we may or may not do a show. We've been taking the All-Star break off. Yeah, we've been taking the All-Star break off the last couple of years. It's a great way for us to reset. As you know, we don't usually take many weeks off. Even if one of us isn't here, the other person is. Sometimes we have a fill-in co-host, whatever. So the last couple of years we've taken off for the All-Star break. I will say this, I'm going to be out of the country, so I'm not going to be able to do that show regardless. So Ibby has a choice whether or not he wants to do it. And it's going to be up to him. And it's going to be how the Mets are playing. If Ibby needs the break, and I take it, so next week we'll be back regularly scheduled time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday with Tony Metro MLB. It's going to be a great show. After that, well, we'll let you know for the following week. And then we're in it for the last, the dog days of summer through the trade deadline. We'll probably do that 8-hour trade deadline show that we do with Mets Weekly, I'm sure. Yeah. And we'll get a lot of things done through the end of the season. Hopefully there's a lot of good stuff to talk about, but that's a little bit of a heads up as to, what you guys can look forward to. We will be back next week. Anyway, this was fun-ish, I will say. It's more fun when they're winning. But, Ibby, it's always great to talk to you, and it's always great to talk to everybody out in Mets land. Enjoy the game. It's already underway. I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Till Mets Do Us Part. We'll see you next week. Peace.